Hey, boys and girls. We are here with a rational auto mechanic, right?
Yes.
Well,
I've adopted a new career in the last 5 seconds.
Yeah, and Scott just found out we were going live. Good thing we give Scott a warning on this.
Yeah, I just got back from lunch.
Yeah, sorry about that, Scott.
Oh, no problem.
Kind of impromptu.
Yeah, it kind of imprompted me too. So, I just staggered out of my chair and from a nap and got some coffee in me. And, I got this Apple Watch and I got up out of my chair to go make coffee. And I get this little buzz on my wrist and it says, "Congratulations, you closed your exercise ring and you successfully moved. You got up out of the chair. You could have laid there and waited for the coroner, but no, you decided to stand up. And as soon as I stand up, it congratulates me. And it's like, God, I think I set a pretty low bar for exercise."
Sorry, why is that so funny?
I don't know. It's like, I mean, I have no idea what criteria it's using to decide.
Yeah, it could be very sarcastic too.
It could be sarcastic.
You bought the only sarcastic.
You got up out of that armchair.
Maybe your son's programmed it that way.
Maybe.
I shouldn't be laughing though. I don't want to get into ageist thinking.
I know.
Here.
It does make.
Thank you. You're the only one.
it does make me feel good though to get congratulated for standing up. It's like, way to go, man! You lifted that whole body right up on your legs, and
Yeah, because
gravity.
Sometimes it's difficult to get up.
Yep. Yeah. Well, hello there, Command Cyborg of the second armada of science. What am I saying? I don't know.
I don't know either. It's hard to tell.
I'm in a good mood, so I'm probably going to say some random stuff here.
Good. We like random shit. So, evolution of cars in the Ediacaran. So we were talking about how Darwin was really confused at the lack of fossil evidence for transitional species between Fords and Chevrolets.
Indeed.
Yes. And that kind of almost shot evolution. I mean, that's sort of like disproves evolution right there, right?
Yeah, people were arguing about it for half a century.
Yeah.
It was a big issue.
Yep. So Command Cyborg is apparently watching our entire history of videos and commenting on each one of them. Because I get comments on a daily basis on random videos from like a year ago, and it's like, way to go. Thank you.
Way to go, Command Cyborg. Bravo to you. You get 1,000 speed bumps.
Yeah, and he makes a comment, and I have no memory of the stream at all. So I have to go back and look, what the hell were we talking about? It's pretty amazing looking back at history from a year or 2 years ago. So,
see, you're helping speed in more ways than one.
Well, it gives me the incentive to keep doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So this one viewer, I've got one fan.
Oh, you're muted, Scott.
I said that helps Speed get up out of the chair too.
It helped me get up out of the chair today. I could have just waited for the coroner. I don't know. But okay, so
anyway,
talking about evolution of cars. How about So
I guess to start off with, should I mention the thing that inspired the topic of this stream?
Yes. Yeah. What got you today?
Yeah. So if anyone hasn't checked out SFT's, I don't know why I'm recommending SFT. The Dismantling the Best Evidence for Evolution, featuring the mighty Kent Hovind. Basically,
why did he do that?
Whenever you,
why did he actually did he use Kent Hovind's material?
Yeah, Kent Hovind was his expert, quote unquote, for the day.
What? Why would he do that? Is he truly lost his mind? I don't. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, basically, in that video, that stream, which was just kind of the same talking points. I mean, like in regard to homology and nested hierarchies, they brought up the cars again. And I was just thinking, hey, this has been mentioned so many times. So I think it's about time we put this car analogy, this whole common design nonsense to bed, at least for the moment, until they man up and build some new arguments, I guess, which they probably won't. But at least we'll have a reference for our viewers to talk about, if any of them hear this or not. Up to you guys. Your mute, Speed.
And I'm muted too.
So this is it, dismantling the best evidence for evolution, and they actually, do they play clips from Kent here? They do.
Oh no, that Kent was actually with him.
He was with them?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. I'm shocked. I mean, I saw the thumbnail and I thought, what does that mean? What do they have Kent Hovind on there? I didn't realize they actually had him on there as their expert.
Yeah.
They're expert.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Nidemos. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your stream name.
Did they have trouble with the IRS, or perhaps they were wanted to beat their wives or something? Is that what happened?
He's exempt from that now, apparently.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did he get a tax exemption for Dino Adventureland?
I don't know.
I don't see how he. Well, I don't know what are that. I just watched the criteria on Evil. You know, the series. They had the criteria for. In their episode I for IRS, they had the criteria for tax exempt. Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, that's basically what inspired me to talk about this on stream. I don't have a presentation, unfortunately, but I guess this will be a full-on rant / discussion today. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the argument, basically, like they talk about amphibious assault vehicles and how that is just as good as a like a transitional form as predicted by evolution, basically. And what's funny about that to me is the fact that you really get into the nuts and bolts of it. If we found something like an amphibious assault vehicle in nature, in biology, and like an actual organism that reflected that kind of thinking, we would actually be going against a nested hierarchy. So it's hilarious to me. Oh, it is, Dr. Dan? Oh, that's so funny. Also, hi. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Dr. Dan. I just ordered the ERV book, and I told Donnie that because I bought so many other books, he owes me a PDF copy because I want a PDF copy to mark up and tear up. And I promised to give him a good review.
I mean, it shows, and I like Dr. Dan's comment here because it just comes to show how drilled in and so misused this whole common design car analogy argument is. It drives me up the wall because it's so bad, and it's just everywhere at this point.
Yeah.
By the way, do you want to send an email link just in case he wants to join or not?
I just did, because I know that he likes to do it a little earlier in the day.
Oh, that'd be nice.
And he told me that if we started doing the weather report a little earlier, he would join us more often. So, but check your email, Dr. Dan.
Anyway. If not, you can join. But if you can, that would be awesome.
Well, here's like at the top.
Yeah, go ahead.
At the top here, if you have like evidence, right, and then you could come up with a story for that evidence, and you come up with 2 stories for that evidence, and if both of those stories solve all the problems, then it's no longer evidence for anything. Okay.
Right.
So basically, you can't. So, and I think that's kind of what their claim is, that the common design thing will solve all the problems. But then, okay, now if you
kind of negates the other side of it. It's a neutral issue, basically.
But here's the thing: if you have a naturalistic explanation for something, okay, you rely on little pieces or little causal effects that can go together and make something happen. But then if you counter that with, I'm just going to invoke magic. Magic can explain anything.
Right.
Like I can explain with magic why Scott showed up to this stream. I think it was like 1 minute before we went live, or was it 1 minute after? Like I can explain with magic how that happened, right?
Well, the thing about, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, if I can explain anything with magic, then magic is no longer an explanation for anything.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like if I explain Scott Duke's appearance on this stream as invoking magic, basically, then in a very real sense, Scott Duke's appearance on this stream is no longer, it can no longer be used as evidence for that magical explanation. Because in order for something to be evidence for an explanation, the explanation, it has to be testable, it has to predict the thing that we're observing, it has to be consistent with that explanation and no other explanation, basically, or not any dissimilar explanations, I guess I could say, in order for something X to be evidence for an explanation Y. Because you can't just say, oh, this is explanation for this, or the explanation, this is evidence for this explanation or whatnot. You have to be able to actually predict the evidence ahead of time, which comm design obviously doesn't do.
So
and it doesn't make attempts to claim anything specifically.
Okay, so I went out in my garage this morning and I found my Cadillac had been smashed up, and I didn't smash it up the last time I used it. And then I found pry marks on my garage door. Then I found Scott Duke's fingerprints on my steering wheel. Okay. And so, I mean, and Scott told me earlier that God did all that was magic, that God put his fingerprints on my. So he was trying to deny that I have any evidence that he's the one that stole my car and smashed it up last night.
And you can't prove it.
His drunken fits.
I don't care what you say, you cannot prove it.
Yeah. So he's telling me that my evidence is bullshit because he can explain my evidence with magic. So that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, okay, if you have 2 different ways that something could happen, then both of those things are equally likely, unless you're invoking magic, because you can use magic to explain anything, is what I'm saying. So therefore, magic can be used to explain anything.
Right.
Because you can use it.
Yeah, just because the evidence may be consistent with an idea does not make it equally likely as another idea. There are other factors that you have to take into account, like Occam's razor, for example. Like it being a simpler explanation doesn't necessarily make it true in a vague sense, using true there. But like in a scientific sense, you want to go with the easier to use, the explanation that has the fewest added assumptions to it, because if it works, if it explains the data just as well, but it's more practical, basically, it's more it involves less things that we didn't have prior knowledge or acceptance of, then it's a more likely explanation in the scientific sense.
So let's say with cars. Okay, using cars as a system.
Yeah, now we got the philosophy out of the way. Let's get to the nuts and bolts of cars.
Yep.
Cars.
Cars all have wheels.
Yep.
They're all almost identical in construction. In fact, you could look at the. I had an analogy with the rubber on wheels, trying to say that cars evolved basically, or proving that, I don't know, common design or something. I'm not sure.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the wheels, because one of the things that I think kind of goes against this whole car analogy argument is the fact that like the point of a nested hierarchy is to have groups within groups, basically, to have this unbroken nested set, basically, where if you have traits at the endpoints, the terminal branches, they don't just you don't find those specific traits in another terminal branch, for example, unless they were found in an older branch. So like if, for example, what would be a good example? So like this is kind of the issue with homoplasies, in a sense, in that there are traits that are found in some species that share them, but they are not found in the most recent common ancestor between them. That's what defines homoplasia, aka a convergent trait, basically. So for example, the kind of most common example would be wings in birds and bats, which were obviously not present in their most recent common ancestor. So the common ancestor between birds and mammals didn't have wings, obviously. So that would be a convergent trait. And they like to argue that these homoplasies are actually a problem for evolution, because they're saying, well, you invoke these convergent evolution mechanisms to explain when the nested hierarchy fails, but in a real sense, the nested hierarchy isn't failing per se. It's just when we look at the data more carefully, and when we incorporate more characters in our analysis, we actually find that those resemblances between the homoplasies are actually superficial at best.
Right.
At least for morphological characters, that's generally the case, because with DNA, for example, there are only 4 character states, A, C, T, G. And if you have a convergence with an A, for example, it's kind of a bit more difficult to tell that from an actual unique mutation, rather than just a convergence there. But for morphology, it's generally easy to tell the difference between homology and analogy, or homologous traits and analogous traits, I should say.
Yeah, the bat wing and the bird wing are like, that would be a really bad thing for a creationist to use, because those are so obviously different structures.
Right.
Just because they do the same thing, well, that's just an anthropic view of function. You're looking at it and saying they both have the same function, to lift them into the air.
Right, precisely.
But if you drill down, you're going to see that they're drastically different.
Right. Yeah. Another thing is that some characters are, at least in the parsimony analysis, some characters are more able, or more likely to appear or change than others. So, for example, teeth in mammals, for example, can change quite readily. So can the color skin patterns. But like if you're in an environment where there's lots of plants around, then oftentimes different creatures will evolve, flat molar-shaped teeth with cusps to grind up the vegetation and digest it. Well, those kinds of traits that are easier to evolve, so to speak, are less useful for phylogenetic analysis because they inherently carry a low signal to them. They're not as informative about the actual evolutionary history as some other traits, say, for example, the specific arrangement of jaw bones in mammals versus other reptiles. Like, that only happened once. So because it only happened once, it's a more a better trait to use in a sense than just saying, oh, well, these two creatures, they both have wings, or they both have similar looking teeth at the back of their jaws. That's kind of the thing going on here. And this kind of addresses the question, well, foxes are red and some birds are red, so why aren't you considering them related? Well, of course we're not considering them related for the reasons I just mentioned. That's kind of a kind of a crappy example, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I've been looking at it. Ostracoderms, is that how you say it, or is it ostracoderm? Ostracoderms?
I pronounce it ostracoderms.
Ostracoderms. Anyway, been looking at that, and some of the revisions that we've done recently on those trees. What we consider related to what, because we have very little. We do not have molecular data to go on. For those guys, except
DNA
that there are
fossils.
There are two extant members that could be of that clade of ostracoderms, the lamprey and the hagfish, right? That they think may be remnants of that particular clade. I
think they're actually a bit more basal than ostracoderms.
Those things?
Yeah.
Well, no, because a lot of the ostracoderms didn't really have spines. They had notochords, I think. Some of them. Did some have spines? I can't remember if some were vertebrates.
Well, a lot of ostracoderms also had paired fins and bony parts of their morphology, so they're kind of a bit more derived in relation to lampreys and hagfish.
Yeah, unless they lost those limbs later. But I don't know. I just ran into I was surprised to see that statement. But anyway, the point is that this bit about trait-oriented phylogenies is very, very difficult, and that's what we have to do with a lot of the fossil evidence. And we frequently move things around, but they're moved around for very, like if you were to start looking at a Ford and a Chevrolet, and you had nothing left but the tires and the frame, right, to compare, and those tires had been buried for 100 years, both those tires. And if you looked at those two tires from a Ford and a Chevy, I think they would look identical. They'd seem to be from the same species, right?
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, so that kind of trait-oriented phylogeny is a very difficult field, and it has changed a lot, and it's always changing. It's sort of in flux, right? But that isn't.
That's one reason, for example, that just basing your analysis on a single character or trait isn't particularly useful, right, when you're doing phylogenetic analysis.
Yeah.
Should we let Ness? Do you have Nesslig's email by any chance? I feel like he'd have he could back up some of what I'm saying here.
Yep.
More clearly. Nessie.
He
is correct when he says that the evidence for common descent via nested hierarchy is statistical. That's a big point that I think is missed or intentionally ignored by many creationists when they talk about this subject.
Well, when you find one trait, you sort out a phylogeny, and then you find another trait that matches it, and then you find another and another and another. Now you have 10 traits, and they all match. They all end up being the same phylogeny. That's where it gets powerful. That's where you start really thinking, okay, I had something.
Andrew, it looks like Nestle won't be able to join us.
Oh, that's right. He was sick, wasn't he? Okay, sorry, Nestle.
Yeah. Oh, he's sick?
Right, I thought he had a sore.
Yeah, he had problems with his throat yesterday or whenever.
Another one.
He's just still having issues.
Yeah, by the way, boys and girls, I cannot make the Monday weather report, but I canceled my trip up north because the pandemic is tearing northern Minnesota to pieces. And everybody, okay, I was going to go up there to visit a bunch of people, stay in a hotel, and go out and visit all these people. Well, all the people I want to go visit either have sniffles or a fever or COVID. So, like, if I go up north, I'm going to end up staying in the hotel all by myself and talking to them on Zoom. So I decided just to stay home. So
I congratulate you for that choice.
Yeah, I think it was a smart thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't want to risk it.
Well, I was going to go to a function for victims of domestic abuse, and I would have interfaced with about 40 Iron Range, Minnesota people. And
that would have been very abusive.
5 of them would have COVID, at least. And, oh, here we go. Here's some beasts for us. You like beasts?
Cool.
I like beasts.
Yes, the stegas.
Where are my beasts? Come on, beast. Why are my beasts so... There we go. Okay. There, now we can see our beasts. Yeah. Yeah, what do we got here? Panderichthes, Acanthostega, Ichthyostega, what is that? Grepteron? Or, no, Greerapeton. And Cirrorachus. And Eucrita. I can't see that far. Anyway, this is a book called Fins to Limbs. And let me see.
Nice.
Hang on a second. I got it over here. I want to see when it was published. 2007. Here's what she looks like. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, it's a good book, but it's a little dense. Very dense. Yeah, this is cool. They have some pretty decent. I'm trying to find some decent across the board pictures. And there were some comparisons, but I can't find them. But anyway, go ahead, Andrew. I'm just screwing around.
Oh, I actually kind of good that you're talking there because Ooh, okay. Hold on. I just found an image that I might use.
Looks like Speed's label here evolved.
Oh yeah, I'm now heaven bound.
Yeah.
Yep. And it still rhymes. That's the thing. It still rhymes. Very nice.
Yeah. I'm bound to rhyme.
When you're done, can I share my screen?
Yeah. Where's your? But I don't see a screen.
Oh, hold on.
If I saw one, I would share it. Sopterygium, Propterygium, and Metapterygium. That's interesting. That's all part of the Autopodium, I think.
Wait, did you check your email? I think Dr. Dan emailed you earlier.
Oh, he did. Yes, he did. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Dr. Dan. Present bonus. Anyway. How the hell did you get? Oh, anyway, we'll discuss that.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm putting you up.
Zoom. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see. Can I zoom in here a little bit? Is there a way to full screen, perhaps? Sorry, everyone. Technical difficulties.
Well, subjective grouping of automobiles.
What am I doing? Oh, okay. That's not gonna work. Get out. Get out. Go back.
I'll be impressed with the whole auto thing when they show me an automobile egg that I can plant and grow a Cadillac.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, then I'll go for the whole.
Hold on, maybe I'll just pull up the website. Let me try this again. It's loading.
What happened here? Why did we go on full screen?
Oh, I'm trying to pull up the actual web page thing. Oh, is it down here? Hold on.
Latimeria, Neho, Ceratodus, Ceratodus, Euthanopteron, and Acanthus dega. Digit identity, digits. Oh, this is the. They used to think that, I guess at one time they actually thought that the fingers came from fin rays.
Oh.
It turns out that fin rays are more like scales. And fingers are the autopodium, is what they call your hand. Developed as a later on. Basically, there wasn't anything present in the fish that was too much like that, other than some basal bones, sort of thing. When you start reading this stuff, it hurts your brain because you have to look up so much anatomy. And then I've got another book called Comparative Vertebrate Anatomy, which is also something that you should just know before you even launch into this book. And I don't. So there's just a whole lot of stuff to learn. And, just learning things. Are you still working?
I found it, but how do I go back? Hold on. Sorry, I'm not trying to bore everyone here.
Yeah, the platypus. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah, the platypus. Yeah, they claim that a lot. It's ridiculous.
Oh, a little song. Oh, that's nice. I like a little music.
Well, just to explain why, while I'm trying to find this again, because the platypus bill isn't actually like a duck's bill. It's covered with mammalian skin, not keratin.
Yep.
The actual jaw structure underneath the bill is completely different. The venom of the platypus, I believe, is sort of related to. I'm not sure. You might want to correct me on this, Nestle, but I think it's a plesiomorphy of synapsids and diapsids in general, maybe. Sure.
Yeah, it's the same thing as a bat wing and a bird wing, right? They seem to have the same function and they kind of have the same shape, but if you look at the anatomy, they're nothing like each other.
Right. It looks like a duck's bill. It looks like webbed feet, for example, but the underlying structure is different, which just comes to show that they're thinking about it in a phonetic sense, not a phylogenetic sense.
Yep.
Ooh, okay, I found it. Hold on. Let's see if I can spread. Okay, I found a slide player here that might be good to explain it. I'm gonna post a link in the private chat so you can put it in the description because I don't want to plagiarize.
Okay. Oh, nice.
and then I will share my screen.
And waiting. There you go.
Okay. Thanks, Nestle. Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure, it's not the exact same thing as reptilian venom. It's the underlying proteins are different.
What the heck? I'm trying to get this slide player to work.
I think the platypus needs its own PR firm just to represent it. That way, it will quit being confused with reptiles and things.
What's a PR?
PR representative, public relations manager.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right. I guess it's showing. Okay. So I'm going to use this slide player to show or demonstrate the points I was talking about. So right here, we shared derived characters are used to construct the actual phylogeny. So vascular tissue in plants, for example, or chloroplasts, like these are traits that usually only appear once, and therefore all the organisms that share that trait are grouped together, because if all of them share it, then it's reasonable that their common ancestor also had that trait. So that's where we get this groups within groups pattern, just providing some background here. And this can also be seen, as they say here, in human languages. And now we get to this slide. So this is one reason why the nested hierarchy, that you can basically force one on automobiles, vehicles, and other kinds of tools, but it's not a natural objective nested hierarchy. In other words, the nested hierarchy that you see proposed by creationists for vehicles is basically an illusion. It's subjective, as they say here.
Yeah,
and that's because
different traits and you'd end up with entirely different hierarchies, right?
Right, yeah, and just to show that here, like you could say red, for example, using the colors, and I should probably actually find, I'll deal with that later. Yeah, so if you were to start with colors first, for example, a red color, because that's a feature of different vehicles. But if you were to start with wheels, for example, you can see you get completely different hierarchies. And in fact, if you were to do this for many other characters, you'd find that they kind of change all over the place. In other words, they have what's called a low phylogenetic signal. So they, like you said, they don't show the same consistent, unique nested hierarchy. And that's why the nested hierarchy that you see between living things and the one that creationists assert for or propose for vehicles, they're different.
Yeah, and this is kind of my big one. Cars do not reproduce. So why are you even talking about this?
Well, because they often come back at that with, oh, well, reproduct, they're kind of a non sequitur, but like cars adding reproduction to the mix doesn't help case, because how did reproduction evolve?
Right. Back in, I think the 60s, every single year they started almost from scratch and redesigned cars. And they just ended up using the same suppliers over and over again. So they ended up with similarities there.
I think if you buy organic cars, they'll reproduce, but big big automobile, they just process them too hard, too much.
Okay, Teslas do reproduce. Okay, we've got 3 of them in the garage now. We had one the other day. There's 3 now, and they keep telling us to worship some Elon dude. I don't know what the hell they're saying. They keep mumbling. They're getting more and more intelligent the longer we leave them in the garage plugged in. So I'm a little worried about my son's choice to purchase a Tesla. It's trying to get us to join a cult.
The singularity is real. You heard it here, folks.
What was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say.
You were looking at slides. Okay, we have 3 wheels, 4 wheels, 3 wheels, 4 wheels. We have color. Oh, you're doing it by color and yeah. Anyway, it's just so obvious. I mean, it's like, and if you want to invoke common designer, you can, like, okay, if they want to invoke creationism, and the whole Standing for Truth ministry is about reading what AIG is putting out and all those guys are putting out. And what they're putting out is every time there's a new biological discovery, they try to find a way that this is proof that God did it. And they'll take these little one-off papers and they'll stretch them all over the place. And they'll, like when they came up with the VIGE or VIGE, what is it? Variable genetic elements, variable interspersed genetic elements. No, what the hell's VIGE stand for? When they came up with that, it was just this huge stretch to explain transposons. and they had to really make up a lot of stuff and leave a lot of parts out in the middle. And it's just absolutely amazing. But anytime we come up with new information in biology, they will come up with some new God did it way to do it, right?
Well, it seems like Dr. Dan posted in the side chat.
He did. Variation-inducing genetic elements. Yeah, there they go. Which is absolutely insane. But I believe I heard Donnie, and we'll know when I actually look into the CRV book, claiming that God put transposons in every individual, and then those transposons escaped the species and became viruses. That it went from endogenous retrovirus to a retrovirus. Whoa.
What's going on?
Yeah, that happened with Brain Bugs image yesterday. This was a image that Nestle linked us to, but somebody else is going to have to show it, I guess.
That reminds me. So we've had a couple of users that are claiming that we're buffering, okay, not only when we're live, but on replay, and they don't have that problem with other videos. And how could that be? Because it all goes up to YouTube, right? So anybody who's having trouble with buffering on our stuff, but nobody else's stuff, does that make any sense how that could happen? I mean,
I don't know.
Once you record a YouTube video, it's on YouTube is the provider, not StreamYard or Streamlabs. No, StreamYard. So I don't know what's going on, but I've heard now. I had two users complain that they're having that problem with buffering, and so much that it was unwatchable. Anybody else that's had a problem, let me know. Oh, YouTube had issues the last couple of days. Every now and then they do. So,
hey guys, I'll be right back. Hold on.
VIGE, because we need an acronym. Anyway, the stretch they're making on transposons is I think it's the stretch that's going to break them if they keep it up, if they don't shut the hell up about transposons, because it is so obvious how wrong they are. And created heterozygosity too. That one just falls apart when you look at it with an 11th grade biology background. Somebody left. Everybody left. Am I the only one here? Oh no. Well, I've
been chit-chatting with my mute here.
Has ya?
I has.
You has. Zebrafish pectoral fin, chicken wing.
I'm sad that Dr. Dan couldn't join.
Yeah.
It is sad. It is sad.
Yes.
But he does have like this thing called a life.
That is true.
Okay, so some new videos are buffering, maybe because I don't know. Maybe YouTube put in some sort of limiting algorithm that if more than one person's playing the same video, they because we've done that sort of thing on some servers. Sometimes you have to limit content. You just make the user suffer and they'll quit doing it. Anyway. Yeah, we had short notice too, Dr. Dan. Yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry.
Andrew woke us all up from our slumber and said, "Hey,
too much energy. Need to let it out."
Yes, I know.
Well, I've kind of said what I want to say. Those are kind of the big points I want to.
Well, let's look around here. Look at this. Okay, here we got a zebrafish, and we have a chicken wing, and we have a mouse forelimb. And I don't know, it's chicken wings. So where's the wing? So it's stretched across the humerus and the radius?
That and the digits too, I believe.
And the digits are kind of extended, but they're not all that extended. And then up here on, let's see, the zebrafish, proximal radials, basically, those I think are the things where the autopodium developed, or the fingers basically developed. But the radius and the ulna are compressed into like one little cluster of bones here, one right on top of the other. And they sort of like slid. Okay, and I'm using storybook cartoon mentality. These bones sort of slid into an extended structure, and the radius and the ulna were already there, but they were right on top of each other and right underneath the what would have become the humerus. But these things sort of extended. Now, in order to do that, there's a let's see, it's a real simple program, and they all use Hox genes. So they all pattern according to Hox genes from the proximal, that means the closest to your body part, to the distal part of your limb, right? And so they play off on different Hox genes all the way through it. And let me see here. We got PDF, PDFS, PPT. Okay. So this is what we're looking at here is a limb bud, which is just starting to pop out. It looks like a little pimple. So your arm looked like a pimple when it first popped out.
Yeah.
And it had these structures, and one of the structures it has is on the ectoderm, okay, which is one layer of your embryo, which is on the outside. And then on the inside, we have the mesoderm. Now, the apical ectodermal ridge formed on the ectoderm and interacted with this what is it? My goodness, polarized? No, progressive zone on the inside in the mesoderm, right? And these two things interacted. And this apical ectodermal ridge has a certain cell type that if you remove it, a limb won't form. And it interacts with this mesoderm, and then there's a zone of polarizing activity on the bottom, which is another little bump that produces a different kind of protein, and that creates the what is it? Ventral part of your hand or your limb. Okay, as it goes out, the underside of your limb as opposed to the back of your hand, that sort of thing. Your palm, not the back of your hand. And this whole thing, this progressive zone keeps producing basically material, and it sort of like extends out. And now as it extends, there's this interplay of all these different factors. And depending on the timing of the interplay, you'll end up with different lengths of limb with different animals. So it's and it's the same program in birds and reptiles and humans and frogs and all sorts of things. Use almost exactly the same program, except there's different timing involved, and how they all work together. So if you you remember a long time ago when you were asking whether or not evolution happened by regulatory mutations or actual protein mutations,
right?
One or the other. Now, this sort of thing happens almost entirely by regulatory mutations. So a very slight difference in a regulatory element will cause it to be less concentrated, and hence it will drop out earlier in the timeline, and you'll end up with like maybe a shorter limb.
Right.
But then on the other hand, some of these things shut off growth. So if you inhibit an inhibitor, you're going to end up with a long limb, right? So there's this whole interplay, and it's like a little program. And
right. And the fact that they're all interacting with one another means that if you change one, you don't necessarily change the others in a negative way all of a sudden.
Right. And here we have, let me get rid of me. I want to get rid of me. Getting rid of me. Okay, so here we have the Hox genes for the forelimb and the hind limb. And they have a very, even though these limbs are almost identical, they have almost the same program. You can see that the concentrations vertically, okay, as you look along, and can you see my, can you see, you can't see my cursor on this. Anyway, if you look down the vertical line, you can see that the Hox genes have a very slightly different concentrations for hind limbs and forelimbs, okay? And then you've got, what is it, Hox 9 or whatever on the bottom that is present in the forelimb but not present in the hind limb. So if you modify things very slightly, you'll end up with very different patterns between fingers and between your legs and your arms, that sort of thing. Though that picture looks remarkably the same. Why did they do that? Yeah, why did they do that? I'm not sure why they did that. Let's see what else we got here.
Can I mention something that's going on in the side chat here?
Yes, but first of all, this I got this image from Dr. Dan and his yeah. And
I remember this picture.
Yeah, this shows the interaction of fly legs and mouse legs. Okay, there are these programs sort of were enabled, basically promotes hedgehog, which promotes DPP is, I forget what that one is, but then that promotes distalist. But if you go look over here, okay, we have hedgehog in the fly, we have sonic hedgehog in the mouse, but it's in the same spot. And if you look at DPP, in the same spot, we have something called bone morphogenic protein, or BMP. And then we have wingless here, and that compares with Wnt7, which is, I forget where Wnt comes from. But anyway, the Wnt pathway in mammals. So, I mean, this is between a fly leg and a mouse leg. And oddly enough, they run the same programs. And so they were looking at this, and they were trying to figure out, okay, how far back does this program go if it's going to affect both arthropods and mammals? So now, and I think as it turns out, there are 4 different theories basically that were listed in this paper that Dr. Dan gave me, and we don't really know how far back it goes, but there is something stunning about the fact that these 2 programs, even though they have different proteins in some places, look exactly the same. So this network looks the same for the fly leg and the mouse leg, which is very interesting. Maybe we'll get to that paper someday, but anyway, I wanted to show that.
Well, this actually kind of reminds me of something in the same video that SFT and Matt produced, or the live stream they did. Matt, like, he keeps pulling up this claim, or this quote by Ernst Mayr from the 1960s, where basically from going from a selection only perspective, Mayr is claiming that the kind of genetic programs you're seeing here shouldn't be homologous between these different phyla, because selection would have erased the similarities between them. And basically what Raw Matt is doing is he's trying to claim that because of what Mayr said, these homologous genes or genetic similarities and presumably morphological similarities weren't expected of evolution to begin with, which is obviously nonsense. But that's just kind of what you're putting here remind me of what he said there and just how nonsensical it was.
Yeah, when you look back, okay, at what is basal between arthropods and mammals, you've got a program here, okay, a genetic program that seems to be prolific among all life, right? And you have to look back and you have to consider the other things that this thing may have done and may have erected.
Right.
Like that Wnt pathway has a whole lot to do with growth of cells and growth of any organ, okay? And so do the BMPs, or the bone morphogenetic proteins, which are very similar, to these to the decapentaplegic, which is DPP protein. But I mean, there was a pathway that did something in very simple multicellular animals, and this stuff may go all the way back to the Cambrian, and as to what they started producing, and the fact that they ended up branching off and over 400 million years getting different is not surprising, and yet staying the same because the pathway works. Okay. Patterning that lays down body access are getting reused, not just the length of the body, but for and it isn't just limbs where this is being used. You'll find these paths, some of the same pathways used in nervous system development and various parts of the organ development, and like the branching pathway of the nephrons in your kidney, the veins, the veins in your circulatory system, the what are they called in your lungs? Those little branchy things. What are they called in your lungs? I don't like to think about lungs.
Brachii.
Yeah. Okay. Those things. Yeah. All of those things are developed according to the same program across the board in all types of animals. Right. This one particular, they call them genetic cassettes. So this is like a genetic cassette, and it ends up getting reused over and over again. And the other thing is that this is just the way pathways develop. There is something about complexity overall in life.
Oh, it looks like we got it wrong.
What's that? What did we get wrong?
Dr. Dan says bronchioles and alveoli. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
Oh, alveoli. Yeah.
If I can also mention Nestle's comment here, I think he's correct that kind of what I was trying to argue for, basically, that Raw Matt is basically saying that because of this quote, it wasn't expected of evolutionary theory in general, not ignoring the fact that these similarities were already known of in morphology, even around Darwin's time, and probably some genetic similarities before the advent of the modern synthesis. But like, this was a problem for the inner hypothesis, or a subset of evolutionary theory that said that selection was the only force driving evolution, which we now know obviously isn't true. So that would sort of go against the selectionist paradigm, but it wouldn't really be evidence against evolution or common descent in general. I guess I don't know. Do you think that would be a fair summarization, Nestle?
Why would natural selection have destroyed basically these simple patterns in networks, that worked for many different systems?
Well, they basically thought that natural selection was powerful enough such that you would expect to see a lot of convergence between these different distantly related animals. So, like, it was the selection pressures were strong enough that basically they could appear more than once, and homology wouldn't necessarily be expected, which we obviously now know is wrong.
Yeah, natural selection isn't the only player. There's a whole lot of other things operating. have to think about that some more. But.
Well, also not ignoring the fact that science, evolutionary biology itself is continuously changing. So even if that was predicted at one point, not necessarily the prediction of modern evolutionary theory.
Yeah, it's like Hox genes. Hox genes are used both in segmenting your body from the tip of your head to your toes, and also in segmenting a limb. And then I think some organs basically turn on different Hox genes. So I mean, the pattern's being used over and over again because the pattern is extremely powerful.
Right.
And it works. And once you have a patterning mechanism, why would natural selection change that? It would conserve it, basically. Because a fully functional organism could, like, okay, if you're going into insect limbs, which are very, very different than mammalian limbs, right? Don't have bones in the center, got bones on the outside, sort of, or chitin. And you're at every stage of the game, the animal has to be viable. It has to be living and create and reproduce, right?
Right.
And so you have a pattern that basically produces one kind of thing. That pattern is going to be primarily important to the viability of that organism. So if you want to look at it as natural selection, that is going to be conserved because it is going to be selected against if it aberrates in any way. I don't know. I'm tired.
But yeah,
that
makes sense. We both are.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I don't know.
Well, for one reason or another, this is what some scientists thought back then.
I don't know why they thought that.
Yeah, me neither. But oh well.
I think about it. Yeah. Yep. Well,
then again, there wasn't genetic sequencing wasn't really a thing. Neither was developmental biology or evolutionary developmental biology as a discipline.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the thing I've been seizing on in the last few weeks is that the idea of selection for, as soon as you add the word for to it, -4, you have gone down a teleological pathway of thinking that is not going to give you good results. When you think of just selection, that there has to be a filter for a viable organism, that sort of thing, selection. And that selection is going to, that some things that reproduce more or have a higher fitness, higher gain, are going to end up being selected. But what does it mean when you say selected for? That means that some pressure selected them. And that's kind of the wrong way to think about it. Because evolution proceeds in this always, you always have to look back and forth between populations over time and the fact that every individual organism has to survive, has to become viable and reproduce. So you have those two tensions, right? And you can't look at one generation of an organism and say, oh, this was selected for, or this has a high fitness to the environment or to the niche.
Right.
That's just the wrong way of looking at it. You have to look at it in these much broader, more abstract regularities.
Right. Well, another thing is, even if the individual did survive in one generation, it could just be random chance.
Yeah.
Not necessarily selection. It's only the general trend that you look at.
Yeah, and you're not going to see that general trend unless you average it over a great deal of time and numbers.
Individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, both ways. You're not going to see it individually at all. And then who was it? Richard, was it Lewontin, or I think it was Lewontin that came down on basically when you look at the idea of fitness as a number, as a scalar, actually a real number, when you look at fitness that way, and you start running population genetics, but then if you add overlapping generations and different life expectancy tables and all of that stuff, that stuff becomes very difficult in population models. But overall, you're going to see this regularity, and that regularity is called natural selection. That's why I say it's fundamental to everything, this irregularity. I was thinking about, if there was no natural selection at all, if there was just like the only selection there was is something is like binary. It's either viable or it's not. You either make this threshold or you don't. But above that threshold, there's no selection at all. No fitness, no number that represents fitness, right? You would end up with populations where every organism would be entirely different from every other organism. There would be no reason for this commonality among organisms, would there? If there was
I guess not, because nothing would really reach fixation.
Right, everything would just be jumbling around, and like you'd say, Scott would have 3 arms, I'd have 7, you'd have 5.
Right, yeah.
You wouldn't have any arms at all. You'd have some other kind of tentacle sort of shit that you youngins have.
I'd rather have 4 just because symmetry, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So I guess before we end, just to clarify something with Nestlig here, because he's obviously looked at the quote in question and the context behind it. So Nestlig, for that quote by Ernst Mayr, he was talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, he was talking about distantly related groups of organisms like phyla or larger clades than that, in terms of these homologous genes, right? He wasn't like, we already knew that similarities obviously existed within the phyla, or within members of a particular phyla, I should say. At least that's the general impression that I have, but maybe his is. Okay. Thanks.
If natural selection was all there was, then it would have selected everything that was originally shared in common ancestry eventually. Except for what I was just saying about variable reproductive success. Everything that was shared originally in common. Okay, I'm not sure. I'm too tired to think about this, but that's kind of what I was saying, where everything would be different. Basically, everything would be selected. But no, that's not quite all there is. I don't know. Anyway, fuck it all. Doesn't consider phylogenetic constraints shown by evolutionary development of biology. Yeah, too bad Nestlis can't come in.
Yeah. Well, at least he did add some stuff today, which I'm grateful for.
Yep. I got some more pictures.
Yeah.
Here's one. This is somatogenesis, which is really cool to say, and it makes you sound smart if you say it fast. Anyway, basically how you segment from the tip of your head to your toes, and how insects segment. So there are, and some of this stuff is still being figured out, but there's this segmentation clock. John Peterson. But I can't answer you, John. I'm online. Stop it. Stop making that noise. Okay. Anyway, so there's basically, you have retinoic acid on one side, and you've got on the other side, what the hell is the other one? Yeah, the Wnt FGF. And you've got these gradients between, but then it sets up like the segmentation clock that will make it, like creates a segment and then it sort of dies off in the middle, so that you have a little, like if you look at an insect, it has like little layers, like stacks of donuts on top of each other, that sort of thing. That's caused by the segmentation clock. And then it turns on the Hox genes at various levels, different Hox genes, depending on these gradients down here. And those gradients are the wedgy things. The tippy tip is where it barely exists. But retinoic acid is a very simple compound that ends up having a whole lot to do with tip of the head, tip of the toes development, and creating these segments. And that is pretty cool. And I started looking into some papers for that stuff, and oh my God, that is a deep hole. And you look into all that. And this is a little bit about the receptors and cell receptors and all that. I don't know. I got lots of pretty pictures. Oh, Barisi, development of the tetrapod limb. Anyway, Oh, here we go. There's more stuff. Chicks, humans, and horses. That's a good picture with the progress zone and apical ectodermal ridge and all that. And then in fish, that turns out to be an apical ectodermal fin. It's instead of a ridge, it's a little bit different how it develops in fish, but it uses some of the same stuff. And then on the left here, you can see the segmented vertebrae, and that's the somatogenesis that I was showing on the last slide. And then for the hell of it, I had to put a picture of humans because I always get radius, tibia, and thumb are together, and ulna and fibula, and I always forget that shit because I'm really not all that much in anatomy. Oh, and here's gills in the salamander. Interesting. Anyway, I have about 200 more slides. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. I'm going to do something else.
My dogs want their food.
He's actually got them in a huge book on his coffee table, and when people come over to visit, he just whips it out and starts showing all the diagrams.
Yeah, and
then for some strange reason they don't come back.
They leave in 20 minutes too, and which is a real bonus because then I can go sit in my armchair and watch Netflix, which is what I want to go do right now.
Yeah. Until your watch tells you you need to get up.
Oh yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna go feed the dogs? We were gonna end. Well, the interesting idea that goes into this so-called facilitated variation when developmental. Okay, let's read this. When developmental modules evolves, it facilitates further evolution via reuse. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about. These cassettes of development, these networks of development, they seem to be over and over and over again when you do comparisons. And I think that's some of those things were basically cobbled together in this so-called Cambrian explosion. And they ended up creating a whole bunch of different experiments, right? And then over time, some of these experiments dropped out, or just by chance and by snowball Earth or volcanoes or whatever the hell, or some extinction event, just one after another dropped out until we ended up with just a few body plans. But I think once these powerful Hox gene Wnt retinoic acid cassettes developed, they just created a whole lot of diversity initially until the paths were formed and fixed. And then because of monophyly, you can't go backwards and start over. You like if you're building a house and you're 3/4 of the way done with your house and you decide, oh shit, I changed my mind, I don't want to do this, I want the bedroom over here or whatever, you're not going to go all the way back to the foundation very easily. It's best to just work with what you got and turn it into something new rather than go all the way back and recreate. And then these cassettes are more like, a pattern in building a wall or something like that. But boy, am I fucking rambling now. Hi, Scott. Yeah, I see how you fucking are. You too. I'm going to end the stream.
Rambling. I'm sorry, man. I couldn't get to the mute button fast enough.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end this. So
please end this for the good of everybody.
For the good of everybody, before we go any further. Before I put my foot in my mouth totally. Let's see what else is going on. I finished Evil. I finished the second season of Evil.
Oh, I thought you meant like you wanted to be more good now.
Oh, yeah. I finished being evil. Now I'm heaven bound. Speed of sound.
That's right. Heaven bound.
Heaven bound. Speed of sound.
Evil. I still need to check that out.
Oh, Wendy's bound. Speed of sound. I think that'll be next. So.
Wendy's bound?
Wendy's bound. Speed of sound.
Like towards the restaurant?
Yeah. I made some spaghetti the other day with no noodles. That's the way I'm rolling lately.
So you just had meat with spaghetti sauce on it?
I had meatballs in meat sauce.
Okay, all right.
Meatballs and meat sauce. That was pretty good. So yeah, steak and meat sauce. That would be pretty good too. I don't know. It's meat all the way down anyway. That's what we.
That's cool.
Yep. My son keeps wanting these fucking things. What does he call them? Vegetable.
Well, did he suddenly lose knowledge of where the nearest grocery store is?
Well, are you kidding me? It's my son. He doesn't go to the grocery store. I do that. But I don't know what a vegetable is. Veggie table? I don't know what he wants. He keeps talking about a veggie table.
And that was in a quiz I saw online. That was one of the questions. And like, if you can answer these questions, you're a true genius. And it was, this table has no legs.
Oh,
and the answer was vegetable.
Veggie table.
I then clicked out of that. And I thought, this is stupid.
I always tell him, eat your fucking T-bone and shut up.
Yeah.
Fucking veggie table. Okay, I'm gonna go. Goodbye.
Alrighty.
Bye.